Hi guys, welcome back to another video. We are here in St.ANN, right at the Hibiscus Lodge. It's a bittersweet moment at this time. We are here with the Jamaica Egg Farmers Association, where we're paying our respect and our tribute to the farmer late Roy Baker, JP. At this time, just to like, to share, to subscribe, just share the video. So we're gonna take you right in. Let's go. Alright, yes, we're still here at the Hibiscus Lodge here in Ocho Rio'S. The meeting is still going on. We take a break, but the meeting, matters arising from the minutes is the difficulties the egg farmers are facing right across the board, and what they can do to lessen the burden of the egg farmers. But as we proceed, I just want you to share, to like, to subscribe as we go along.
So now we're starting this meeting. This meeting, our monthly meeting of the Jamaica Egg Farmers Association, is now called to order. As is our custom, we're going to start with a word of prayer. And we're going to ask Mr. Jennings to lead us in prayer.
We thank you, Lord, for journeying mercy that brought us here where we could sit together as people to discuss our business. We beg you, dear Lord, that you come in the midst and direct our thoughts. Give us clear understanding, Lord, and help us to be in harmony with each other. For we ask God in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Jennings. All right. So, as you all know, the baker passed away recently, and as I said earlier, unexpectedly. So some of us are still trying to come to terms with this sudden passing. I think I'm going to open the batting, since that was my position in the cricket team when I played cricket. And so sad I can't now go and help out the West Indies because of age, not ability. My tribute to Mr. Baker is that since the formation of JEFA, we have had 3 presidents. The founding president, Mr. Ian Banks, followed by myself, and then Mr. Baker. And I have said it before elsewhere, and I'm saying it today, that of the 3, I put Mr. Baker at the top of the list.
That's right. Yes.
Mr. Baker brought competence as a president. He brought integrity as a president. He brought passion to his work as a president. He brought principle, a principled position, and he was deeply committed to the JEFA for working for the improvement of the egg industry and the life of the egg farmer. I cannot, time does not allow me, or maybe what I should say is those who planned this tribute have not given me enough time to elaborate on each of these tributes. But I must comment on the principle that he held highly. And I tell you a story of a company, a big baking company in Kingston that wanted to import powdered eggs. And Mr. Baker was the supplier of the shell eggs to that company. And the ministry, with the Minister of Agriculture in the meeting, turned to Mr. Baker and said, Mr. Baker, such and such a company represented here, they would like to import powdered eggs into Jamaica, but the ball is in the court of the JEFA. This company, Mr. Baker told me, bought an average of 60 cases of eggs from him every week. And Mr. Baker, in that meeting with the ministry and Minister officials, said, I cannot agree to the importation of powdered eggs into Jamaica. And the representative, the owner of the company who was in the meeting, looked at Mr. Baker in the meeting and said, Mr. Baker, if that is your position, you will sell not a single dozen egg to my company again. And he lost that contract, and he went about his business, because he stood for the principle that if we are producing eggs in Jamaica, we should stand against the importation of every egg that comes here, because every imported egg displaces a local farmer. So I can only refer to that. So I look at Mr. Baker and I tell him that with everything said, I also know he was deeply committed to his church. And so I'm going to quote a scripture from the Bible that came to mind when I thought about Mr. Baker. It is found in 1 Corinthians 2 verse 9. It says, "No eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man conceived what God has prepared for those who love him." Mr. Baker loved God. And so I hope that Mr. Baker will be among those in the first resurrection. That is my tribute to him.
Mr. Chairman. You know, it is said that cow never know the use of his tail till it cut. And a lot of us didn't get the chance or didn't tell Mr. Baker how well he has represented us. But I know he's somewhere in this corner, you know, listening, but he can't respond. And I'm sure in this room you have a number of persons who have people in their lives who they fail to appreciate them and tell them how well they acknowledge how good they are. So I exhort you to, if you have not told your special persons in your life, whether it is a wife, a husband, a family member, or whatever it is the time to do it, because they said, speak no evil of the dead. So when you die, you can't hear all these good things that there is about you. I know Mr. Baker from the 80s. We served on the Credit Union League Board for a number of years. And he was part of the team that represented the Credit Union League at the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions on a number of occasions. So we served together. He represented Clarendon and I represented Portland. So we knew each other from those days. So when we met here at Egg Farmers, I was a little surprised because Mr. Baker is an industry man. He's based on his profession. As man deals with big industries and things like that. So seeing him in agriculture, I was a little surprised. But I realized that he bought the farm that was the Castres. The same people who sell us supplies, DFL, the ones who sell us egg flats and things like that, he bought that farm and he has made it a model. Mr. Baker has come to this association and he has taken it like his own operation. And he has represented us in every sphere of this business. And wherever the meeting is, wherever the promotion is, wherever the media is, Mr. Baker is there representing us. And he did it selflessly. I am pleased to associate with him. He seemed not to get flustered or vexed. He seemed always happy. And even if you say a couple words against him seemed not to keep it, hold it against you. And he is that type of man. And if you meet him at the right place, he will buy your soda as well. Mr. Baker has been a special person to this association, and I'm sure we will all miss him. So may his soul rest in peace and life perpetual shine on him. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I just like to say it's the best speech I ever hear, Mr. Fowler.
And I will add one of the shortest after 10 minutes.
It was warm.
Okay. The floor is there.
He stopped by. The day dawned, and with great anticipation he arrived. It seemed that time stood still for a minute. It didn't take long, however, before he spoke. Though quietly and softly, yet quite profound. And we heard, yes, he stopped by. He got involved, and he was propelled to ensure that he added his voice. Though he did it gently and with such poise, his words stood above the noise. He shared his story with many of us. Through the corridors of time, he became relentless and he made it a must. He engineered the process, and there was much that was gained. We will continue to echo his story, and his work will never be in vain. We will always remember, Mr. Baker, that you stopped by. We knew that his visit would one day come to an end. With every fiber of our being, we say thanks for all that he lent. He shared his expertise and advice. We give thanks for the day he became part of our lives. The Jamaica Egg Farmers Association salutes the life of our former president, Mr. Roy Baker. We will never forget that he stopped by and his presence made a difference. Today, once again, we say thanks for stopping by, Mr. Baker. May your soul rest in peace. Peace where the weary will cease from troubling, and the weary will be at rest. All of God's saints with the angels, he will sit at his feet and be blessed. He will sit at his feet and be blessed. Thank you.
Should I go chair? Because I always want to. This is my clothes. I want to hear the sing as well. So First of all, for the membership, I just want to offer my deepest condolences for our loss in Mr. Baker. If he were here as well, he would want me to express our condolences for Dr. Moore. I think at the time when Dr. Moore passed, I was off the island, and I think I'm not sure if we were represented well in our passing, meaning you guys heard from us directly about our condolences and how we felt. So I was off the island, and that kind of impacted the way our presence at that time. If Mr.
Dr. McHugh also represents that.
Yes. And if Mr. Baker were here, he would allow me to express my condolences for Dr. Moore as well, because he would expect that sort of recognition being Mr. Baker. The main thing I would want to say in tribute to Mr. Baker is that he's, I guess what I would say is a consummate gentleman. Mr. Paul mentioned it as well, but Mr. Baker has always presented himself well at all times. When I see Mr. Baker, I think he can buy you a soda in the outfit he woke up in the morning, or he can go and meet with the Prime Minister without a moment's notice. He was just always prepared for every occasion, professionally attired and presentable to handle any situation that you put in front of him. He carried himself with dignity, if you want to call it that. I wouldn't say grace, because grace sounds too feminine. But he carried himself with grace at all times. He was professional in how he dealt with everybody, not just us because we are hypro, if you want to call it that, and we are his feed supplier, but he was very gracious in how he dealt with anybody that he came across. And I think that is a trait that takes a lot of practice. For one, patience, which he has, and respect for others, which I think came across in his service to the Egg Farmers Association and the industry at large, because to be selfless in giving of your time to an industry, not to a personal cause. Well, it is personal because he has skin in the game, but he has given his time, decades. How long has the association been around, Chair?
1994.
And he's been here from day one. Early. So he has committed his life to the association, to the membership, to make sure that the egg industry is protected and remains sustainable for those of us who are here today. So I want to pay tribute to him for that time and dedication that he has shown, but also Mr. Baker the man, and how he has carried himself across the years. Obviously at Hypro we have a long relationship with Mr. Baker, and we'll say more, I think, at the correct time. But when I look back at his history with us, I think we're touching near 20 years of a business relationship. I mean, that goes for many people in this room, let me just say. But we truly appreciate the time that was spent with Mr. Baker, his assistance to the industry, and his commitment to agriculture. So I just want to pay tribute to him, the man, the president, Sir Roy, Mas Roy, and when the ladies see him in the office, everybody, who Mr. Baker is here. So we just want to pay our respects. I want to pay my respects to him and offer my condolences to the association. Thank you very much.
if that is okay. When Mr. Baker died, it was a Friday. And the message was conveyed by a lady. You know, it seemed like in life, ladies play a major role. When Jesus died and was resurrected, the ladies saw him first. When Mr. Baker died, the ladies were circulating the information. But in addition to circulating the information, they just couldn't believe, and they circulated the information with tears. There's another lady at the office who had excellent relationships with Mr. Baker. When she called me to communicate some details about what Hypro would do for the association, she had to hang up the call. She was a mess. She was in such pain of heart and tears that she couldn't talk. That's the effect that the death of Mr. Baker has had on those who he had close contact with at Hypro. It was a shock for me too, even though I knew he was ailing, but it was still a big loss, a huge loss. And I would like to use this opportunity to pay tribute to Mr. Baker as it relates to my interactions with him and the effect he had upon me. The first thing I realized about Mr. Baker is that he was a private person. When he came to shop at Hypro, he drove by himself. When he was at the farm, he spent a lot of time reflecting, planning, forecasting, troubleshooting by himself. He appeared to like his own company, but nothing is wrong with that. So that's what I realized about Mr. Baker. He's a private person. The next thing I observed about him is that he represented the association well. I think it was in 2003, I had the privilege of traveling with Mr. Mark Campbell and Mr. Baker to the Caribbean Poultry Association conference in Trinidad. And at that conference, biosecurity measures were recommended. And he was very quick to collect the information and take it back to Jamaica and disseminate it and ensure that the farmers had those biosecurity measures implemented on their farm. That's how he was. Wherever he went, he was always interested in how he can impart what he has learned to the association members. And when we are at the meetings at the Ministry of Agriculture at MICA, Mr. Baker represented the association and the egg farmers in an impeccable way. He had his facts, he had his information he wanted to share, and the reasons why he felt the way he felt about a particular matter, he could substantiate it when he was in those meetings. And also the media, whatever concerns they had, they knew they could call on Mr. Baker. And on all the stations you can think about, I've heard Mr. Baker represent this association in a very fine way. I also remember that Mr. Baker held you accountable. Well, he held me accountable. I felt accountable in the sense that whenever we sold him a flock of birds, he would weigh the birds and tell you what you sold him and what he expected. Not only that, he would give you a written report of the flock of birds he purchased, and he would monitor them throughout their lifetime and tell you if they did poorly or if they did well. So I am better off as a field operations supervisor for the suggestions or the criticism of Mr. Baker. I knew that I had to make sure that supplying or providing this service to the members of Jeffa, it wasn't something they take for granted. Not just throw some birds at the club and when they reach 18 weeks to take them back out and give them to the farmer. No, Mr. Baker expected a certain level of performance from those birds, and I knew it, and I constantly tried to up my game because he, for one, and other members too, held me accountable. And that is why, just this morning, when one member came in to the meeting, he stopped here before he sat down and whispered in my ears. Boy, the bird them again last week, them nice man, them a perform good. So those criticisms that help us to perform over the years, and I want to recognize that Mr. Baker's his criticism, it made me feel accountable to the association for the job that I did. Not only that, he held himself responsible to maintain high standards. Because when you went to Mr. Baker's farm, he took pride in everything that he did. You had to sanitize, even before COVID, you had to use your PPE. There's an area that he puts you. If you need to speak to somebody, there's an area that you go. You don't just walk on his farm and go in and see his birds. And when you do get in there, the place is just spick and span. Everything is in order. That's what I appreciate about Mr. Baker. And that is the kind of person he is. When you see Mr. Baker, he's well tucked in, well put together. His vehicle is clean, his shoes is clean. He's just a clean, well represented. He represented himself and his business very well. And another incident I had with Mr. Baker that really is outstanding is that a few years ago, a gentleman named Thomas Wallace from Big Dutchman came to Jamaica. He had nothing to do with ER Farms or National Eggs. He came for a different project. And when the man came, he asked, what has happened to Roy Baker? I remember that farm that I came. And he wanted me to take him to Roy Baker's farm. And I had to leave St.ANN because we were at Teen Challenge up in the hills there. I had to leave St.ANN and take Mr. Wallace to visit Roy Baker at his farm. And he was elated just to be back there, just to see the man again, just to talk with him because of who the man represented. That's the kind of man Mr. Baker was. Clean, organized, excellent record keeping. And finally, he was loyal. Loyal to his family, loyal to the company that I represent. No matter what, as we could say, through the highs and the lows, through the thick and the thin, Mr. Baker stuck with Hyper, and we deeply appreciate that. And you will notice too that he spoke his mind. If he didn't like what we did or something that we did, he would tell me right here. And I would tell him that, Mr. Baker, remember, I'm just the messenger. However, he stood for what he believed, and he didn't keep a grudge. You know, I remember people say some harsh things to Mr. Baker right in that room down there. But he didn't keep a grudge.
Right.
So in summary, he was a very fine person. We are certainly going to miss him. And as I said, he's a private man. He represented the association well. He held you accountable. He himself was responsible to maintain high standards, and he stood for what he believed. We will certainly miss Mr. Roy Baker.
You received that tremendous round of applause for the quality and the content, not the length.
Listen, I could have gone a little longer. I could have gone a little longer.
Yes, you could have, but I would have cut you down. Thank you very much, Monica. I spotted one of your qualities in there too, that you're very observant and a note-taking person. I'm glad that you noticed certain things about Mr. Baker that you reminded us of, that part of not keeping a grudge. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I told myself I was not going to be given a tribute. But it would be a disappointment to Mr. Baker if I didn't say something. The man, Edward Roy Baker, was a giant of a man who occupied a small frame and displayed deep intellect and integrity in everything he did. He was not loud or boastful, but with deep conviction would go quietly about his business. In the very short time that I had the good fortune to work with Mr. Baker, I found him to be a man of honor who gave his all in the interest of the Jamaica Egg Farmers Association, and especially for the small farmers. I would go to the meetings at the Ministry of Agriculture, and I was always impressed how he had all his facts together. He defended the association. His pet project was trying to get the GCT removed from table X, and he never missed an opportunity to pressure the government to do it. Unfortunately, he was not successful. But I know that he's speaking quietly in Colonel Charles Jr.'s ear right now to say, you need to get this thing done now. I don't want to continue to say or repeat what others have said. So what I'd like to do is just to take a little bit of a poem by a nun that says, don't grieve for me, for now I'm free. I'm following the path God has laid for me. I took his hand when I heard him call. I turned my back and I left it all. Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. May his life be full. My life has been full. I savored much. Good times, good friends, a loved one touch. Lift up your hearts and peace to thee. God wanted me, he set me free.
Saddened by the untimely passing of Mr. Roy Baker, former president of the Jamaica Egg Farmers Association. Subsequent to the association's establishment in 1998, the ministry played an integral role in the acquiring of equipment for and the establishment of its liquid egg plant, Caribbean Egg Processors Limited, the first of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean. As president, Mr. Baker ensured liquid eggs were included in Jamaica's school feeding program through Nutrition Products Limited. The relationship between the association and the ministry was strengthened subsequent to the egg glut in 2012. Mr. Baker spearheaded robust discussions and appealed to the ministry to establish a supply management committee with farmers and critical stakeholders. It is through this discussion the ministry acted accordingly and the Egg Industry Development Committee was created. It is also important to note that it is Mr. Baker's steadfast commitment to the egg industry that table eggs have not been imported in Jamaica since 2007. The export of eggs to CARICOM countries are also fruits of his labor. Mr. Baker, through his leadership, created avenues for egg farmers to create relationships with stakeholders such as the Veterinary Services Division and the United States Soybean Export Council USEC through workshops and training. Most importantly, Mr. Baker has always led the consistent fight for the removal of GCT on eggs. The ministry extends its deepest condolences to the family and friends of Mr. Baker and the Jamaica Egg Farmers Association, and will continue to support the association and his legacy. I will now add a personal tribute from Mr. Michael Price, Chairman of the Egg Industry Development Committee. As the Chairman of the Egg Industry Development Committee, I wish to add my personal recognition of the contribution of Mr. Roy Baker to the development of the Jamaican egg industry and indeed wider national development. I have known and worked with Mr. Baker for the better part of the last 20 years. His tireless work in the development and growth of the local egg industry did not waver at any time during this period. The able representation of the Jamaica Egg Farmers Association and by extension the industry was always paramount in all his interactions, and he wielded a potent and important voice at all our meetings. I am proud of the relationship we shared, one of mutual respect and common cause in furthering this, one of our most successful local industry. Egg production in Jamaica has had its ebbs and flows, but I think you would all agree that we all have built a sector that has been one of continuing success, that has seen the managed growth of an industry of which we as stakeholders at all levels should all be proud. Roy Baker and the association he ably represented played a major role in this achievement. This will be his legacy, which as a country we have a responsibility to protect and further. We will miss him, but his work will continue. My personal condolences are extended to his family and friends, as well as the new leadership and members of the Jamaica Egg Farmers Association.
Well, it's very hard for me. We had a very close relationship, even though yes, we might have some heated discussions in the meeting. And I think one of the times we were labeled as the group of 3 cliques within the board meeting who was opposing to some of the things that Mr. Baker and Mr. Campbell always come up with. But we were always on par to making this association the best that we could. And it's very tough for me to say farewell, regardless of what we have been through. He had put out the work, put out the effort, and he was the calmer in especially in the board meetings when Mr. Paul was getting up and making noise and mashing up the place and licking the table. Baker was the calmer, would say, all right, let me work it out this way, and sit down and listen. For 5 minutes we just listen and Paul just go and make some noise and Baker just listen and then we'll get back to normal. So we're going to miss him, and I think the work will continue. I will ensure that we make sure whatever outstanding things that we have to do, Ms. Siebert mentioned the GCT, we'll continue the fight. We'll continue the fight with getting the best police, Mordecai. I will continue the fight to make sure so we get the best that we can out of our suppliers. So I want to say farewell to him, and he'll be missed, but he won't be forgotten.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. And that brings us to the end of this. Unless, of course, anyone has been touched by a moment of inspiration. I think the tributes have been well placed and well said. I think we have covered Mr. Baker in a nice way. And we really, by these tributes, have indicated that Mr. Baker has left something for all of us to learn and to carry on.
Today was a very special day for us because we had this sad business of paying tribute to our outstanding president, Roy Baker, who passed on January the 7th.
Okay.
Mr. Baker was the second longest serving member of the association. He was well loved by all, and he worked tirelessly on behalf of its membership and the association. Mr. Baker's contribution to the development of the table egg industry is legendary, and everybody knows how much he fought to keep Jamaica self-sufficient in eggs. One of the last projects that he was working on before he passed was to have the GCT removed from eggs. The egg industry is the only agricultural industry that pays GCT.
Okay.
So we are continuing to fight to get that done as part of his legacy. We had a very good turnout today, and it shows the mettle of the man, that even though he wasn't here, people who would normally come to meeting came out today to pay their tribute to him. We will miss him, but we will continue the fight for egg farmers in his memory. Thank you.